Hello everyone, and welcome back to PokeXplanations, the show where I talk about how our world would be if Pokemon really existed. But before we begin, guys, I just want to say thank you for your continued interest in this show. I really appreciate it, and I really hope you enjoy these. Episode 10 is right around the corner, with this being episode 9, and I'm going to make a couple of changes to the show then, and I didn't want to catch you guys off guard. I'm going to have a separate video actually for that, somewhere up here. Should be corner. Anyway, go to that video, watch it, leave me a comment on what I ask in that video. I don't want to give it away here. Thank you guys for your continued interest, and I didn't want to catch you guys off guard with the changes I'm going to be making. So, just a little heads up, and go check out this video up here. I'll be running annotation throughout the show. And so, without further ado, we move on to our subjects of the day, which, incidentally, will contain one of the changes I'll be making to the show, with Snorunt, Glalie, and Froslass. And yes, these sprites, they now move, and they are magical and animated and happy in things and words, so hopefully you guys like that. Leave me a comment down below, but for right now, let's just jump right into Snorunt's description, starting with Ruby version. Snorunt live in regions with heavy snowfall. In seasons without snow, such as spring and summer, this Pokemon steals away to live quietly among stalactites and stalagmites deep in caverns. Sapphire version. Snorunt survives by eating only snow and ice. Old folklore claims that a house visited by this Pokemon is sure to prosper for many generations to come. And I would like to point out and expand on this, guys, that in a description in a later game, I believe Diamond and Pearl, I'm not 100% sure on that, since it's been a couple days since I've researched this actually. It says that a Snorunt that lives in the house, so that's really open to debate on if it's just visiting or living, or so throwing that out there. Emerald version. They tend to move about in groups of around 5 Snorunt. In snowy regions, it is said that when they are seen late at night, snowfall will arrive by morning. Fire red and leaf green version. It is said that a home visited by Snorunt will prosper. It can withstand cold of minus 150 degrees Fahrenheit. And finally, Platinum version. It is said that several Snorunt gather under giant leaves and live together in harmony. Alright, so much like some of the other base level Pokemon we've had on this show, Snorunt doesn't really have a big impact. I do have some talking points on it though, so I'm not going to just bypass it. The first point I want to talk about Snorunt is the major contradiction between the Ruby description and the Platinum description. The Ruby description says it lives in caves when there's not snow, and the Platinum description says that it lives under large leaves in groups. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, what if it stays under the leaves in the summer months? The Ruby description specifically states that in the spring and summer months it goes into these caves, either to hide and feast on moisture coming off the stalactites and stalagmites, or to maintain a very low core body temperature. I would have to say to maintain a low body temperature, because the Sapphire description states it only eats snow and ice. The second and final point I want to make about Snorunt right now is the whole snowfall effect. If it's seen late at night sometime, snow will arrive by the morning. Is it making that snow? Is it migrating towards the snow? It seems like it would be migrating, but there's also the possibility that with a very low body temperature, and I don't know if it's powerful enough to do this. I don't think so, since not a lot of base level Pokemon are very powerful, that it would try to make a blizzard or something, or a light snowfall, in order to live in a certain area. The fact that this Pokemon moves around in groups of about 5 or more, I'd have to say more power to the migrating theory, because it seems like they're staying together, not for warmth, because it's an ice-type Pokemon. They have to stay as cold as possible to maintain a core body temperature, and you'll find this pretty well in most of the ice-type Pokemon. They have to maintain a low core body temperature, since they are ice-types. And the reason I give more power to the migration theory right now is because it seems like they're staying together for power or defense, something along those lines, for protection for each other. Because this Pokemon is obviously very weak, and since it's so weak, it can't produce a very powerful snow flurry. Certainly one that's not going to cover a very vast area, even in a group, overnight. So I don't think it is able to produce a flurry to to live in a specific area. I believe they have to migrate from place to place in groups for protection and habitat purposes. But those are all the points I have to make about Snorunt. Let's just move on to its first indicated evolution, Glalie, and jump right into its Ruby description. Glalie has a body made of rock, which it hardens with an armor of ice. This Pokemon has the ability to freeze moisture in the atmosphere into any shape it desires. Sapphire version. Glalie has the ability to freely control ice. For example, it can instantly freeze its foe solid. After immobilizing its foe in ice, this Pokemon enjoys eating it in leisurely fashion. Fire Red and Leaf Green versions. It has a body of ice that won't melt even with fire. It can instantly freeze moisture in the atmosphere. Bulbapedia. Glalie tends to be mischievous. They can block paths in order to trap travelers that dwell into mountaintops or caves. Despite its physical disposition, Glalie are very loyal Pokemon. They are often misjudged by their unfriendly appearance. Glalie live in deep, cold caves and sometimes high atop mountain caps hidden within dark crooks of mountains. They have also been found to sleep within large fissures created by moving glaciers. So the first point I'd like to make about Glalie is, how does it float? How does it keep moving? You can see it has no visible arms or legs. Does it have some kind of secret psychic power that we don't know about? Is it constantly freezing the moisture in the atmosphere around it? I don't know. And really that's up to debate. I would say it's constantly freezing the moisture in the atmosphere around it. That seems like the most plausible explanation because so far this thing has had no psychic indication whatsoever. The psychic point is still something interesting to bring up though, because we have to wonder, how does it freeze the moisture around it? How did it first get its rock-solid body into that ice armor? We could guess that being a rock form originally and evolving from a ground-dwelling Snorunt into a big patch of snow and ice and somehow collected all of that armor to its body. We don't know how. Maybe it's something internally. It could be with the kind of rock it's made out of. We don't know. There are a lot of questions about Glalie that the information available just cannot answer. The last thing to really be able to bring up about Glalie is that it did retain the eating habits from its Snorunt evolution in the fact of snow and ice. But apparently it's become more carnivorous in the fact that it can freeze its foe and eat it, and it has to eat through every single thing they're carrying and them. So it's got a very powerful mouth, very powerful jaws. Again, I really don't know how it evolved this way, how it works. Glalie is just a Pokemon that I cannot explain. So getting away from the mess that is Glalie, let's move to its counterpart, and arguably much nicer, as you'll soon find out, Froslass. Let's jump right into Froslass's descriptions. Diamond and Pearl versions. It freezes foes with an icy breath nearly negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit. What seems to be its body is actually hollow. Platinum version. It freezes prey by blowing its negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit breath. It is said to then secretly display its prey. Bulbapedia. Froslass are able to create illusions to manipulate both her prey and foes. It wanders around snowstorms to find unsuspecting prey, freezing them to solid ice for display. Froslass are very caring and will protect those who she loves and trusts, especially their young. They live in very snowy areas and are very rare. The following information about Froslass is not directly listed anywhere, but it's worth mentioning anyway. Froslass is closely based off of a ghostly figure in Japanese folklore by the name of the Yuki-onna. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The name Yuki-onna translates to Snow Woman, and it is often described as a ghostly woman who has dark hair, blue lips, and very pale to transparent skin, and appears in whiteout conditions, sometimes with a baby in her arms, and most often not. Depending on which version of a story you hear about her, you'll hear her being either very passive about capturing her prey, or being very aggressive, as using the conditions around her to manipulate high winds and just completely obliterate houses and kill everyone inside, make ice sculptures out of them. But Froslass is very closely based off of the Yuki-onna, so throwing that out there. So thankfully, much unlike Glalie, Froslass has Ghost in her type pairings to exclude explain how she's able to do all of these things, such as freezing someone in ice, and just manipulate the things around her. So continuing on the ice sculpture thing we read in the Platinum description, I'm unsure whether or not Froslass retains the same dietary habits from Snorunt as Glalie did, or if it has another food source. I looked everywhere for this, and I could not find anything about Froslass's dietary habits. So I'm going to assume that though it's not immediately said, Froslass still eats snow and ice. So unfortunately, that's all I can really say about Froslass right now. Most of its habits were either explained as Snorunt or actually Glalie, because there are a lot of similarities between them, and they only vary by predatory status. So you can't really say a lot more about it. I really wish I could, because by appearance his Pokemon looks very, very interesting. But when you really get to researching it, there's not a lot of information about it. So Nintendo, if you're watching this, fix your Pokemon. I want to know more about this thing. So in conclusion, I don't really see Snorunt making a big impact on our lives. Sure, it may be prosperous to see, but I don't think it's going to have a much bigger impact beyond that. It might predict snowfall, but we have the Weather Channel for that. I mean, if you live out in an old village somewhere and don't have modern conveniences, yeah, seeing a Snorunt will help you know, hey, it's going to snow. As it evolves into Glalie and Froslass, I can see it having a little bit bigger of an impact on our world, but not a very significant one. Glalie, albeit dangerous as both of its evolutions are, obviously, would be a very good addition to your team if you're able to track one down. It's aggressive, it's able to manipulate moisture in the atmosphere so you could catch anything. It'd be an excellent hunting Pokemon to have it by your side, especially considering how loyal it's been by description. Meanwhile, in contrast, while Froslass is still very dangerous, if you're able to obtain a Snorunt and evolve it into Froslass, and I say this because you can train it and make it a little less dangerous to yourself as a Snorunt, and kind of make it to you, because obviously Froslass trusts whoever she is most familiar with, as we read on Bulbapedia. I can see Froslass being very useful to sculptors, artisans, that type, and very artistic. If you catch where I'm going with this. Create some sort of body mold or some kind of mold for Froslass to be able to use, and this Pokemon would be an excellent tool. It can create ice sculptures out of anything. I would assume the same way that Glalie can, just it doesn't eat them. It just leaves them there for display. So, an excellent Pokemon for any up-and-coming artist. But beyond those means and just existing, these Pokemon would not have any major impact. They'd be great additions to your team if you were to go the Pokemon trainer route in your career, but beyond that, no. They would not have a major impact. It would not be drastically world-changing, and there's just not anything else to say about them. Thank you guys very much for watching, though. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, even though I really couldn't say about the Pokemon in question today. If you really enjoyed this video, guys, please give me a thumbs up down below and an add to favorites somewhere around here, and subscribe if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate that. It would really help out the show. If you want to keep up with everything else I do, links in the description down below for my Facebook page and Tumblr blog. You can follow either one of those. There's not specifically different information on them. My Tumblr is linked to my Facebook, so they all get the same information, so you can like both or one or the other. If you like both, then you're my new favorite person. Also in the description you can find a link to the PokeXplanations playlist, which will take you from episode 1 all the way up to the most current episode, which should be this one if I haven't released another one already, and you can watch all of them through automatically. If you'd like to catch up with anything else I do, you can check out my other channels at the very end of this video in the form of annotations. They should be here and here at my outro screen, so click on those annotations and they'll take you to my channels. And of course, if you have a Pokemon you'd like me to review in the future, I ask that you please leave a comment down below. I greatly appreciate that. And speaking of viewer comments, this episode was of course suggested by this person right here. Thank you very much for your suggestion, and please guys, if you have a Pokemon you'd like me to talk about in the future, leave it as a comment down below. I greatly appreciate those. and I read every single one I get. So that's the end of this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give me a like down below and add to favorites if you really enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and links in the description to everything else I do, along with my channels coming up at the end. And I will catch you guys next time in episode 10.